As the federal government has grown, so has our need to delude ourselves that our leaders somehow possess some otherworldly intellect, wisdom, and power. It is why the media has to work so hard to convince itself that Joe Biden, who is 80, is now basically, he's really the new 20. Biden can't even finish coherent sentences or walk upstairs. That's right. This man cannot navigate stairs, so Secret Service had to put in a special staircase for the man. I posit to you, this is why the media and the deep state want Trump as far away as possible. Trump is a deeply flawed man who also promises to expose not only the ridiculousness of putting our faith in a man, but also he has the tendency to not put on false appearances. He eats McDonald's, has apologetically awful hair, and, well, small hands. In short, the Donald reminds us how absurd we all are, and because most of us can't take a joke, we resent him for it. But with all the bad, also comes a brutally honest man, and a man that actually focuses on subjects that deserve our attention. While Biden is chewing on babies, Trump is screaming Sound of Freedom and honoring Tim Ballard for all the work he's done to rescue children, as well as Jim Caviezel and his performance in the movie Sound of Freedom. And here's what that looked like.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. It's something that I'm not sure if you're supposed to enjoy or learn. It's a combination, but that was a great movie. And I now understand why it's doing so well. It's setting records, by the way. It's beating the biggest movies out. They have some of the big summer blockbusters, and this is knocking the socks off of them, so that's pretty good. I'd love to have your potential. What potential? Anybody want to make a movie? Because I think Jim maybe will be available, but maybe not so long. It is an incredible thing that two movies, and you've done others, but two movies, two of the biggest, I guess the two biggest independents ever done. And it was an honor getting to know you. And I even agreed to do a podcast for somebody. Who is that somebody? Is that you, Tim? Well, that's the least I can do, and I look forward to doing it. So I hope everybody had a fantastic time. I did. It's an incredible inspiration. And you guys are something very special. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and come back.
Now, a couple of points about this. This is why people like Trump. I mean, this is why I actually think he's going to beat DeSantis and all the other candidates. We'll see when all of that kind of comes into fruition, and I hate making those kind of predictions, but I do believe Trump is going to win, and here's why. Here's also why I'm not too sad about it. Not only because the media has worked as hard as they possibly can to character assassinate the man, but because the reality is that his character is kind of the issue. I can't help but wonder if the character assassination of Trump is nothing less than an attempt by the media to try to disguise the fact that we also have a corruptocrat as president in the White House. So really, it's, once again, pick your poison as far as presidential candidates is concerned. You know, Christianity Today wants to try to pretend as though if you vote for Donald Trump, this is some indictment against your Christianity. But every single election in the history of the world has been, I mean, maybe not the first couple, but since then, every single one of them in America has been about choosing the lesser of two evils. And this is why people voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. It wasn't because they were somehow internalizing the patriarchy or somehow, dead set against having a woman as the president. It was because Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt individual the world has ever seen. Now, let me be really clear. Donald Trump's foibles are on the surface. And I can't help but wonder if that's why the media really, really hates Trump. He's a reminder to all of them that this is what humanity actually is. Now, they don't have a mirror, so they're not going to include themselves in this, but this is what humanity is. Deeply flawed, sometimes incredibly oafish. They say things that they don't mean, or say things really inarticulately that they do mean, or sometimes say things that are really stupid that they do mean. I mean, we're all this kind of mixed bag of people. But with the bad of Trump also comes the good. Trump is the only presidential candidate that I know of that has ever shined a spotlight on human trafficking, and specifically the trafficking of children. I've quoted on the show before that in the 400 years of the transatlantic slave trade, there are more slaves today than there was in all of those 400 years. So I know this will come as a great shock to all of the 1619 Project admirers out there, but we're living perhaps in one of the most egregiously slavish eras in human history. Why? Because human trafficking is forcing people into forced labor, forcing people into sex work, and forcing people into all manner of things. And there is no age limit on this. Babies are being forced into these kind of sexual escapades and even dying as a result of it. Babies are being harvested for their organs all around the United States. The media wants to sit back and call this merely a QAnon conspiracy rather than an unfortunate reality. Well, Donald Trump is making sure that there is a spotlight shined upon this. Now, if you remember back in Trump's tenure, he made sure that we celebrated a month dedicated to human trafficking. I believe it's the month of June, and it was a month dedicated to focusing on these people who desperately need our help. While the mainstream media wants to focus on climate change and how devastating it is for people around the world, they cannot really focus on things that are right in front of their face for some odd reason. In fact, they want to pan the movie Sound of Freedom for focusing on this important issue, while they consistently want to focus on issues of way less importance. And maybe that's where a second point kind of comes into play. And we learned this about Donald Trump, in fairness, but we also certainly learned this about the deep state, and we learned this about the mainstream media and our current president. Humanity is dark, and it desperately needs a savior. C.S. Lewis said this. He said you can make two mistakes. You can either put too much faith in the devil and find him everywhere, or you can do what the devil really wants, which is you can forget that he actually exists. And he is far happier to have you believe that he doesn't exist so that he can operate in the dark and do what he wants. Now, of course, conservatives fall into the trap of trying to find the devil in everything, perhaps. But certainly the left falls into the other category of people who never want to focus on true evil. And the problem with that is that when you don't focus on evil, it has the opportunity to proliferate. Well, Donald Trump may be perhaps the most unlikely of candidates to actually shine a light on something like human trafficking, but at least he's doing it. I would love to know exactly what Joe Biden has done that is even in any way equivalent. Of course, he hasn't. Well, he had men shake their physically, surgically imposed fake breasts on the White House lawn, and I guess that's the closest we've got to real kind of civil rights kind of taking the White House under the presidency of Joe Biden. But please, I would love to know the corollary between what Donald Trump has done with human trafficking in his tenure, and even by exposing this movie to a wider audience, and anything that Joe Biden has done. You can leave it down in the comments section below, and I'd love to interact with you on it, because I can't think of a single thing. And as our world becomes more depressingly dark, more suicidal, it desperately needs something to fill the God-shaped hole that resides in each and every one of our hearts. We need that meaning and that purpose that we used to establish from community, that we found very often in religious settings, and more importantly, that we found in belief in a transcendent God that was bigger than us. In the meantime, without that, we find ourselves doing really desperate things to try to eke out some kind of spiritual existence for ourselves.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.